Welcome to the Buck Stops here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, The Buck, Kirk Buchner, owner, operator of NotInHallOfFame.com, and we're continuing our series, part 4 of a look at all the past players in the National Football League that are worthy of possible induction to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Now, we've done three divisions in the AFC. We're going to finish it off with the AFC North. Pretty much the AFC's version of the black and blue division. And there's a lot to dissect here. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland, which will get a lot more press than you'd think, and Pittsburgh, which gets exactly as much discussion as you think. With me again is Vinny Lospinuso. Vinny, the 19-year-old football wunderkind who knows a lot more about pro football history than probably the people who vote on the Hall of Fame combined. Let's get right to it. Let's bring on Vinny. Vinny, it's great to have you back. I think we're going to finally finish the AFC today.
Yeah, it should be exciting. Unlike the last three divisions, this one is probably, when it comes to competition, I usually look at this and says this has been the most competitive division in my life so far. You have a team like the Baltimore Ravens, always known for their defense. Bengals, always, for a lot of my time, they've been a team that's been competitive, coming up short, but still being competitive. The Pittsburgh Steelers, of course, one of the most well-known, established franchises in all professional sports, and the Browns, they suck. But now they might be doing good, for all we know.
They're a vogue pick right now by a lot of people to get to the Super Bowl. That's sort of the hot in thing now, is to be a Browns fan, which is a weird thing to say, isn't it?
It feels very weird because just a couple years ago, they were 0-16.
Yep.
Literally just 2 years ago, were 0-16, and before that they were 1-15, and before that they were 3-13. So a span in 3 years of 4-44. That is, oh my God, that's still unbeliviable to me how someone can be that bad for that long.
But they're going to get some love from us today, because I think I would imagine with the exception of Pittsburgh, we're going to be talking about more former Browns today than any other team out of the four.
Oh yeah, easily. The first two teams are more thin, but the back half is very, very loaded.
Yeah, it's like going on a championship golf course, and you're thinking you're doing really good on the front nine.
Yeah, it is, and then it just becomes an absolute train wreck afterwards. Except in this case, it becomes more interesting because you have. So, should we start off with alphabetically? Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what we've been doing. With the Baltimore Ravens, and just for those listening who aren't aware, Baltimore, yes, they used to be the original Cleveland Browns, but they do not own that history. So when we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, we're only talking about those who were in Baltimore, because not everyone's aware of that.
Keep in mind, Edgar Allan Poe did not play for the Baltimore Ravens. I hope they understand that. But that's actually where the name came from.
Yeah,
Raven.
Yes. Well, it's not a bad name. Actually, I like that better than Baltimore Colts.
I think the name Raven is fantastic. It imposes fear on the opponent. A raven, a big black bird that hovers over the sky and seeks fear into its prey.
A lot more than Cardinal or Blue Jay, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, because Cardinal, it's a Cardinal, and a Blue Jay, it's a Blue Jay. But a raven, the big black bird, watch out.
But we could just do a whole podcast on team names. I've always thought one of the worst team names in sports is from the city I'm from. There's nothing less imposing than a maple leaf. But what do I know?
I don't know, but or a Canadian for that matter.
Yeah, but at least that's a nation of people who are good at hockey.
Yes, where here's the maple leaf, you're just a leaf. Oh, so tough, a leaf.
Not only that, the Maple Leafs are actually already on the ground by the time most hockey's on. They're not even in the trees.
That is true. They've been bad for a lot of my life.
All of my life, and I'm twice your age. Let's put that in perspective there for a second. I have never been alive to watch the Maple Leafs win a Stanley Cup. And I'm old as dirt.
You're not that old.
Yeah, well, I still got you by 2 decades and a half, which is depressing. But yeah, so we'll just go back to. I got to go back to this topic because otherwise I'm just gonna like cry in my beer. The Baltimore Ravens. When I was looking at everything that they have, there's the biggest Raven of all time, Ed Lewis. I'm combining Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. Nice. Both of them are already in, but there's still some Ravens who are going to be coming up. But there's nobody in my mind who is defined as a Raven who is eligible right now that deserves induction, but there are a few coming up. Would you agree?
Yeah. The only one you can maybe make a case for would be Jamal Lewis, who, of course, had that massive season in 2003 where he had 2,000 yards rushing. He also was a first-team All-Pro that year, and he was a Pro Bowl that year. And despite the fact he had such a great career with the Ravens, that was his only All-Pro nod and his only Pro Bowl nod. But he was a pretty dominant back for his time, and if I recall, he did have over 10,000 rushing yards. So it's not like he wasn't a scrub, but it's just that his best season was when he got the accolades. And to help his credit, he was part of the 2000s All-Decade team, specifically the second team. So that definitely does not hurt him. I think that only helps him.
The way I have a Mendoza line when it comes to running backs in the Hall of Fame, and if you're not better than this guy, I don't think you can really come into the conversation. And that's former Seahawk Sean Alexander, who's never been close to being a semifinalist. I have Jamal below Sean. No, and I'm sure you will, and so will I. But I mean, like, if Sean Alexander's not even close, Jamal Lewis, he's not. I'll go on a pulpit for a lot of guys. Jamal Lewis isn't one of them. I've got 5 names I want to bounce off you for the Ravens in the future. 2 I like, 3 not as much because they're still playing. So Terrell Suggs for me is, I think, the best shot of any former Raven.
I'm going to mention his name, but when we get to the Cardinals, I will.
Okay, but not for now because I mean, pretty much if he enters, it'll be for his accomplishments as a Raven.
Oh yeah, I don't know, but I'm just like, the reason the way I do it is if you're active with that team, I will mention you with that team, but I will, of course, mention that you were mostly with the other team. Like back in the first part, we touched on Joe Flacco because even though he's a Raven,
right? He's
currently with the Broncos. That's what I'm definitely gonna get to Terrell Suggs. And
okay, fair enough. We can wait. We can wait for that.
And spoiler alert, before we get there, yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Famer.
I don't have Flacco as a name that I'm considering, frankly.
Oh, no. Like, no, not at all. I was just, you were mentioning about Broncos quarterbacks, and I mentioned Joe Flacco in the AFC West. That's why.
Actually, I've got a sort of a future thing alert that I'm going to ask you to be a part of. I was going to send you a message over, but I'll bring this up now because I think this is a great discussion. One of the sections I'm going to be adding before the season starts is a Hall of Fame, kind of like a monitor of the top 50 active players. And that ranking will change at the end of every year. Flacco's probably not even going to make that top 50.
Flacco, not even close. Yeah, he had his elite run in 2012, but everyone knows that team is highlighted by their defense. When you think of the Ravens, you think of defense. You don't think of Joe Flacco. Yes, he had the postseason run, and yes, he's won 10 playoff games. But how much of that was really because of him?
I hear you. The way I always looked at Flacco is he's a quarterback that maybe for a 10-year period, which is still very, very good, at least over half the league would have rather had him as their quarterback than the guy they had. But if you're not at that 90th percentile or even 80th, you're not a Hall of Fame quarterback, and the standards are really high for that.
Flacco's not even the best quarterback from his draft class.
That's true too.
I mean, not even close to the best quarterback in his draft class.
So, are there any other Ravens we even want to touch on, or should we just get right to Cincinnati?
There's actually a few Ravens I really want to mention. Let's first start with the one that literally retired on top, and by on top I mean on top of a mountain. Elodie Nada.
That's right. Yes, he did. He did that on a very sweet Instagram post, I believe.
I thought that was a really, really clever way to go out.
Yeah, I mean, it was right up there with, I think, with Jared Allen literally riding into the sunset.
Yeah, I'll mention. Don't worry, I'm going to mention him too.
I'm not worried about you missing anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would mention that being a Jared Allen, the best thing going with him, that is definitely one of my favorites. And speaking of retired players, before we get off topic, Haloti Ngata, when I was growing up back in the 2000s, early 2010s, when they talked about elite defensive tackles, he was always the first guy they always brought up. And what happened then is he was a 5-time Pro Bowler, a 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro. One of those second-team All-Pros when he was not a Pro Bowler, so that kind of makes it a de facto 6-time All-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
He was the Super Bowl champion, and with 47. He also had 515 tackles and 32.5 sacks, as well as 7 forced fumbles, 5 of them fumble recoveries, and 5 interceptions, and one of them was a defensive touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So not a bad career for Mr. Ngata. However, I would say that when it comes to Ngata, after his run with the Ravens, he had a bit of a decline. He wasn't exactly the same player with the Lions, and he was injured a bit. In fact, for instance, in 2015, he struggled. In 2016 and 2017, they were both cut really short due to injuries. And his final year was with the Eagles, where he was mostly a rotational player, where he was always in the game, but last time I checked, I don't even think he started a game there. He just came in as a rotation. Like sometimes when they needed him, he'd come in. When sometimes they didn't need him, they just went back on the bench. But something has to be said about his time with the Ravens. I mean, no one can argue. In fact, you can make a very, very strong argument that there's no better defensive tackle in the league than him.
At one point in time.
Yeah, at one point in time. But it was for a pretty significant time. It was literally from like a 6-year period. From that 6-year period, many people consider him as probably the best defensive tackle in the league. And considering that there's some teams have a 4-3 defense, some teams have a 3-4 defense, considering that as a defensive tackle, if you were considered the best at your position, and if you're part of the defensive line, specifically defensive tackles, where unlike the defensive end, which primarily results in like sacks, a lot of times defensive tackles generally like to bull rush and do the key tackles. I mean, the fact that you were the best defensive tackle, arguably, for your time, don't you think that's something to be said for him?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a strong case there. I think he's still going to struggle to get to a semifinalist position, but
I think so too.
He's going to struggle more than he should.
Yeah, I think Ravens fans I really do think they're going to push like hell for Haloti Ngata, and
I hope they do.
am really cheering for him too.
I hope they do. There's a couple others that I think worth discussing, or at least touching on a little bit. We want to keep that back nine for a lot because Cleveland, Pittsburgh, you're getting a lot of love tonight.
There's actually 3 active Ravens that I have.
Can I guess who they are?
Take a guess.
Marshall Yanda.
Yes.
Eric Weddle.
He's not with the Ravens anymore.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Anquan Bolden.
He's Anquan Bolden. I have listed. I'll talk to him when we get to the Cardinals. And by the way, only 2 of those. By the way, Marshall Yanda is active, but you're forgetting 2 others: Earl Thomas and Justin Tucker.
I always forget kickers. I don't give kickers a lot of love. I'll admit that.
You should.
You're right. I should. And if there's one person I should, and I'm already doing my prelim work on my fantasy football, and I'm sort of like scouring over his stuff, thinking I might be able to sneak him in sort of a mid-rounder. But that's another story for another time. Anyone else that you think is worth just sort of like just giving a little mini shout out, because we want to give a lot of time for Cleveland and Pittsburgh. I'm thinking Steve Smith.
Should I touch a little bit on now we're mentioning Tucker. Should I mention a little bit on him, you think? I mean, as to why I want Justin Tucker in the Hall of Fame?
Right now? I mean, at this point? Sure. You know what? Yeah, let's touch it.
Yeah, Justin Tucker, since he came into the league, most people consider him as the best kicker in the National Football League. When I think of Justin Tucker, I think of clutch, automatic, constant, every single kick, he'll make it. And for extra points, for every single one of those extra points, except for last year, that one last year against the Saints, he made every single extra point. And mind you, now the extra point has been pushed back, so it's harder for kickers to make those extra points. The fact that he's able to still do it on a daily basis, always going out there, putting in the work every single day. The guy has been a 4-time All-Pro. He's probably on the first team for the All-Decade team when it comes to kickers. But he's only been a 2-time Pro Bowler. And the reason as to why that's the case is because sometimes another player from the same conference might have a slightly better season, and they might get more votes than him. But even then, Justin Tucker has still always been considered the best of his game. What do you think of Justin Tucker?
I think he's again. I don't give kickers a lot of love as I should. I'm not one of the. Every time I'll see when Vinatieri's on my screen and say, "Oh, first ballot Hall of Famer," my first thought is, "No, he's not."
I don't think Justin Tucker is either. But something has to be said for the most accurate kicker of all time.
Absolutely, and I think Tucker definitely should be, but it all goes back to that position. And I guess I have a little bit of a bias here, and it's sort of inherent or sort of like driven into me from the Hall itself, and it shouldn't be because there's a lot of things about Canton I want to change. But kickers are just one of those positions that I never get into. Maybe I listen to Peyton Manning bash. Oh God, that idiot kicker. What was that guy's name? Vanderjagt. And it was a fellow Canadian too, right from my hometown.
With me, I understand he's a kicker, but he's not going to be the kicker we're going to be talking about the most today. But when it comes to Justin Tucker, he is definitely on the short list of kickers that I really, 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 really want. And in terms of special teamers, he's one of the many that I want. And I've always been a very, very strong proponent of having more special teamers in. And in terms of active special teamers, outside of Vinatieri, Tucker is an easy number 2.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Is there anyone else in Baltimore you want to just sort of give Cincinnati, which is surprisingly low when it comes to.
You're kind of muffled right now.
Sorry. I was saying, is there anyone else in Baltimore?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. So is there anyone else in Baltimore you want to sort of give a shout out to?
I'm going to mention Yanda a bit. I mean, he's going to be on the All-Decade team most likely for the 2010s, and he has been, I think, a 6-time or 7-time Pro Bowler, and he's been an All-Pro like 5 or 6 times. I think he definitely does deserve consideration. The only question I have is more so his position. He is a guard, and there's been a bit of a struggle with guards, but I personally think in terms of guards for this decade, in terms of active guards, I think Yanda is at the very top.
Mm-hmm.
And there's not really much I can say for him. It's just that he definitely deserves it. And for Earl Thomas, even though he's obviously a Seahawk, he just signed with the Ravens, so I get to mention him in this section. He was the start of the Legion of Boom. And we all know about the Seahawks defense during the 2010s. He went to 2 straight Super Bowls, won the first one, lost the second one. They were always feared. They were always considered the best secondary unit in the league, and it all started with Earl Thomas. So what has Earl Thomas done as a player? Well, as a player, Earl Thomas has been a 6-time Pro Bowler as well as a 5-time All-Pro. He also has had 684 tackles, 67 pass deflections, 28 interceptions, as well as 11 forced fumbles, 5 fumble recoveries, and 3 defensive touchdowns. And he is considered one of the best. And, of course, he's currently been considered one of the best safeties in the National Football League. However, I wonder how much of that is going to change because he broke his leg last season. And we all know how the season ended with him flipping off Pete Carroll as the doctors drove him off into the locker room.
that was sort of a very interesting way to sort of leave the Pacific Northwest.
And now he's going to Baltimore, who, it's not exactly going to be easier. Not because of the team, but, the city.
I think I'd rather be a Raven right now than a Seahawk.
Oh, yeah, I would be too, because even though the Seahawks made the playoffs this year, I definitely think because of Lamar Jackson and because that defense shaking up, I definitely think the Ravens have a bit of a brighter future ahead of them. Not saying the Seahawks can't still be consistent. I think outside the Patriots, the closest to the Patriots in the NFC I consider to be the Seahawks, but in terms of just the two teams easily, I think the Ravens have a brighter future. But Lamar Jackson needs to amp up his throwing game a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Any other Ravens we want to look at?
Should I mention him now, or should I mention him when we get to the Browns?
Which one are you thinking?
You know who I'm thinking.
No,
of.
I don't.
Art.
Oh, God. Wow. Art Rooney. Oh, my God. No, not Art Rooney.
Art Rooney.
Hmm?
Art Rooney. He's already in. Art Rooney's already in.
Art Modell, sorry.
Modell.
Why the hell did I think Art Rooney for some reason? Art Modell. Oh. Did you know that somebody got arrested for pissing on his grave?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, one guy in 2014, one guy was arrested for piss on his grave, which I'm kind of shocked that was the only time that it happens. I'm pretty sure there've probably been more, but
well, he might have been the only one who put it on social media.
Yeah, yes. I'm mentioning Art Modell here.
Ooh.
Now you might be saying, we mentioned Bud Adams.
Yeah.
And I told people in Houston to just let it go. You have a team.
Man. I just said we were going to give all this love to Cleveland, and oh wow.
Should I mention it with the Browns, or should I mention him right now?
You might as well mention him right now.
Yeah, Art Modell, people want to rip on him because he left the city of Cleveland, but even today, people don't just blame Art Modell for it. They blame the city of Cleveland for not doing anything faster. They blame them for not really being as effective as they could have. I mean, they gave the Indians a new stadium, but a lot of people still kind of blame the city of Cleveland for making him leave in the first place. And even for Modell, I think he wanted to leave then too. But he wasn't as impactful as Rosenblum, for instance, for improving and growing the NFL as a whole. But Modell has been very, very successful, and he is one of the reasons to why the league is the way it is today. And as much as people want to say, he ruined the hearts of Cleveland, but he is absolutely praised in Baltimore. He is beloved there because they were without a team for 15 years. I mean, the Colts, you wouldn't think that they would leave the Colts, and they didn't get their name back. Whereas with the Browns, they got their name, they kept the name, they kept the history, and they got a team a couple years later. Yes, the team isn't.
And what a team it's been.
The team may not be the. What?
And what a team it's been.
Yeah. It has not been good, and I'm pretty sure they're probably mad at him because they probably wish that the team that they got was better than the Ravens. But I would say I would like to see Art Modell in. I know that sounds like, I know one could say, oh my God, you want to see Art Modell in? You're an absolute evil, satanic human being. You should never exist on the face of this earth, which I'm pretty sure one Browns fan might say to me, but I don't care.
They might want to piss on your grave too. Good thing you're 19 and it'll take a long time for that to happen.
Even if they do, I'll be dead, so I won't get to experience it.
I guess not. Wow, I'm a huge fan of a lot of sports and everything, but I've never felt the need to take my fandom and just actually defecate or urinate on it. Why? I mean, there's just no point to any of it. At the end of the day, it's a game.
Even when the guy died, they never mentioned that he died over at any of the Browns games because they know the reaction it would get from Browns fans. And there's part of me that kind of feels a bit bad for him, too. Yes, there was conflicts between him and the city of Cleveland, but you can't just blame it all on Modell. I mean, I'm not saying that yes, the way they did it was very, very botched, and he faced widespread scorn, deservedly so. But at the same time, if it wasn't for the stadium, if he got the stadium where it is, then, Modell would not probably be as reviled. And Baltimore was willing to have the stadium. They were willing to welcome the Browns in, and that's what happened. Yeah, and for the Browns fans, I would say just chill out, man.
Could do a whole show on just my hatred of cities sort of ponying up the dough for stadiums, but that's for another show, another time. All right, let's just. You
can thank Rosenblum for that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Now you know why he's my most wanted owner.
Love it.
Not Modell, Rosenblum.
No, I know. I remember. So
in terms of wanted owners, I'd like to see Modell, but I think some time needs to pass before. Bud Hines is now wanted and now respected, but it kind of took a little while for that. And I would say that Modell at least 15 years, and a couple owners would have to be added, and then Modell is going to be seen a little bit more positively.
Yeah,
that's my.
And even then, it still might not happen. All right, let's.
I don't care.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
I want it to happen.
All right, let's cross into Ohio, and I think with Cincinnati, there's one former player that everyone gets behind, and a few others worth giving a mention to. That one player is probably, in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks never to get into. I think he was only nominated once. You might be able to correct me on that. Talking about Ken Anderson.
Twice.
Was it twice?
I think it might have been twice, but I definitely know it was there once as a finalist.
Okay, so yeah, we're talking about Ken Anderson, an excellent quarterback who, I don't know that I want to say carried a team, but because, when you're talking about football, it's sort of hard to say one player can really carry that much, but he pretty much came pretty damn close.
Yeah. And yes, he has been a finalist twice. And in case you're curious, yes, Ken Anderson is by far my most wanted quarterback that's not in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Easily.
Over Roman Gabriel.
Close. What?
Over Roman Gabriel? Because I know you're a big proponent of his.
Yeah, more than Gabriel.
Okay. So,
and
the Bengals.
Gabriel has his own push.
Yeah, there seems to be a strong push for Anderson within the Cincinnati fan base, as there should. Any chance maybe you think we'll see him as a veteran candidate? I think it's certainly possible.
Oh yeah, I think it's very likely. His name's been brought up many, many times, not just by fans, but also by former players. Like for instance, Boomer Esiason is really pushing for him. No, Boomer Esiason's not getting the Hall of Fame. But for Ken Anderson, in case people don't know what he did during his time in Cincinnati, he was a 4-time Pro Bowler. He was a 3-time All-Pro, winning the NFL's most valuable player in 1981 as well as their Offensive Player of the Year and Comeback Player of the Year as well. The Burt Bell Award. He won Man of the Year in 75. He led the year in passing yards 2 times as well as led the league in passer rating 4 times. And he led the team to their first ever Super Bowl appearance where they lost to Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers.
Well, just a loaded and they were so loaded, San Francisco. It would have taken a miracle just for them to get past that, and no one begrudged Ken Anderson and the rest of Cincinnati and the rest of that team for not being able to beat that juggernaut of a team.
Oh yeah, even then, I'm very, very happy that people don't hold that against Ken Anderson. That is something I'm really, really happy about. In fact, Ken Anderson is so heavily wanted that NFL Network selected him number 10 in their top 10 players that are not in the Hall of Fame. Now, granted, to be fair, they had Tiki Barber at number 3, but I'm not going to hold that against him. He was still on that list regardless.
Yeah, Tiki was on that committee that put that together.
That wouldn't shock me.
Oh, man. It's not, yeah, we can go on and on about Tiki. Tiki just retired 1 year too early.
Yeah, I'll get to Tiki when we get to the Giants, because there's probably no Giant that I have more to say about than him.
I'll just leave it with this thing. I swear, Tiki Barber, every time he sees Michael Strahan on television, he's getting drunk, saying, "That was supposed to be my career."
Yeah, I'm going to say this right now. The reason why I say that I would probably talk about Tiki more than any other Giant was, growing up, he was my favorite.
There was a lot to like about the guy. Until there wasn't.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt. I absolutely loved him. Now things have not been the same. And to be fair, they won the Super Bowl the year after, and he wasn't a part of it. But at least Michael Strahan got to experience it.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, because I know Tiki left early because he wanted to get that media career going. It didn't quite happen, and that's why I always say he must be so livid at Strahan, because that's the job he wanted. I mean, I could just imagine him thinking live with Kelly and Tiki. Of course, that's got a really bad ring to it, doesn't it?
And also, Strahan's on Good Morning America. I love.
Oh, Good Morning America. Okay, that shows how much I watch anything that's not sports, or a handful of few shows that are on Netflix.
Yeah, that's me too. Okay, we're kind of diverging.
Oh yeah, okay. So all right. So we're both major supporters of Ken Anderson getting in. The city of Cincinnati is in. There's a lot of people.
There's another Ken.
Ken Riley.
Oh yeah, easily. Ken Riley is very, very rare. A very rare situation as to he has never been to a Pro Bowl. Now you might be saying, why would you mention someone who's never been to the Pro Bowl? That means he probably wasn't that good. No, he was fantastic. But the only downside was that he just wasn't that well known or that popular. But very, very quietly, he became, the last time I checked, he was fourth all-time in interceptions. The last time I checked, he's fourth all-time in interceptions.
Yeah,
I mean, regardless of who you are, fourth time in all-time in interceptions is fourth all-time in interceptions. And the fact that it's from a player like Ken Riley is so underrated as him. Yeah, he's been to All-Pro 4 times, but the fact he's never been to a Pro Bowl is the reason as to why no one really talks about him. But Ken Riley, despite that, there are still some fans from Bengals and even some voters, I think maybe like one or two voters that have mentioned it, that would really, really love to see Ken Riley in, and they've mentioned his name a few times. In fact, the only three guys that were ahead of him in interception by the time he retired were Dick Night Train Lane, Emlyn Tunnel, and Paul Kraft. And Ken Riley was just right behind him. But because he wasn't that well known, that's why he never made it. So far, he didn't. The
only other Bengals I've got that I'm thinking about, Lamar Parrish, Isaac Curtis. Am I missing someone?
Yeah, Lamar Parrish, who was an 8-time Pro Bowler. But I would say that I would focus on Parrish after the two Kens.
No, I agree.
After the two Kens. This one is going to seem a little bit weird because he's only been with the Bengals for 2 years. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I put him with the Bengals is because this is when he had his best season, and because he played with 4 different teams and he had a bit of a span of like 2 to 3 years with them. And I'm just having him here because it's when he broke the now official sack record. Coy Bacon.
Interesting.
Now why am I mentioning Coy Bacon? Well, it's really because it's just one reason. It's because he had the sack record until Mark Gastineau broke it, and he was a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time second-team All-Pro, and he was part of the Kentucky Pro Football Hall of Fame. Not the actual Pro Football Hall of Fame, but the Kentucky Pro Football Hall of Fame.
University or the state?
The state. And, in terms of quarterback sacks themselves, if researchers today, if the statistic was official, he would have had 130 sacks total. No, 130 sacks total, which is massive concern considering his time.
Yeah, you pulled out a name I wouldn't even thought of, or at least not associate with Cincinnati. And again, sometimes when you're a bit of a sporting vagabond, especially in football, because most players have their dominant seasons maybe with two teams tops. Not You don't think of players that sort of like go from team to team to team to team as Hall of Famers. But in football you generally don't.
When I search Coy Bacon, like when I mentioned Coy Bacon, the name that the city that the team that generally comes up the most with him is Bengals. Great. I think one time one person said Rams, but he had his best season with the Bengals, so I'm going to list him as a Bengal.
Fair enough.
And when I mentioned 130, the only players not in the Hall of Fame that have more sacks than him are Lawrence Taylor, who's in, Terrell Suggs, who's active, Leslie O'Neal, who we mentioned in the first part that I really want. John Abraham who will be eligible next year. Jared Allen will be eligible the year after that. DeMarcus Ware will be eligible the year after that. And then Julius Peppers, who will be eligible just 2 years after that. So he's in company with all those guys, future Hall of Famers. The only one who's missing is Coy Bacon. He has more sacks than Ricky Jackson and Derek Thomas. Both are in the Hall of Fame. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic name. That I'll be straight up. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Yeah, but most people did. I didn't think of it myself, but I said, "Wow, this guy had 130 sacks in a time where sacks weren't that prevalent." Damn.
The thing that always bothered me about sort of like official and unofficial sacks. It's not like the footage isn't there to go back and actually sort of retroact this, at least until maybe 1970. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't see why you couldn't. It's all televised, right?
Mm-hmm.
But anyway. I think we might as well just stay in the state here. We're going to be on this one for a while, so let's just jump right into it.
Wait. There's actually 3 more Bengals.
You got 3 more Bengals? No way. All right, go. Bengals. All right, hit me with them.
Ocho Cinco.
Okay. Yeah.
Chad Johnson is not really not as high on my list as other wide receivers. However, he was essentially like T.O., except not as good. But why I say as T.O., in terms of he was a distraction. He had the personality. And for the time, when the Bengals were finally getting out of that Bungles phase and moving into this team that would try to run for playoffs here and there, Chad Johnson was their most well-known player right outside of Carson Palmer and Willie Anderson. No, I'm not going to mention them here because they're just a little bit outside.
Yeah, if you're going to say Carson Palmer is one of the 3, I'm going to cut you off. We're going right to Cleveland.
No, I'm not. No, he's not. The other 2 guys are active. But when it comes to Chad Johnson, he has a bit of a tough road ahead. Now, granted, he has 11,000 receiving yards as well as a 6-time Pro Bowler and a 4-time All-Pro. However, the only downside is probably because he was a bit of a controversial figure. But CNBC did list him in number 1 in terms of most influential athlete on social media. Like, no one else was more influential on social media, according to CNBC, than Chad Johnson.
How did they come up with that?
Something pretty special. What?
How did they come up with that?
I have no idea. They did.
Jesus. Okay.
And, I also mentioned him because he did wear a gold jacket that said Future Hall of Famer, so I might as well mention him here, and I'd love to see it. But not before Bruce and Holt and, a bunch of other guys. A couple I might even mention here.
Chad hasn't been a semifinalist yet either, has he?
No, he has not been. He's not been a semifinalist. He has not been a semifinalist. Hines Ward has been a few times. I will mention him.
We're definitely going to talk about.
I will mention Hines Ward when we get him. But other guys like Laverne Dilwig, one guy I'm going to mention when we get to the Browns that I'm definitely going to mention, and of course Cliff Branch, Harold Carmichael, Drew Pearson, Sterling Sharp. There's a lot of wide receivers. But look on the bright side, Chad. At least you have a better chance than Julian Edelman.
No, he should. Who are your other two?
Two actives. Another wide receiver, A.J. Green.
Yep.
Very underrated wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Always was a big fan of him.
Yep.
And Gina Watkins as well. Very quietly, Gina Watkins has positioned himself as one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. Quietly getting a resume that includes 7 Pro Bowls, 3 All-Pros, 335 tackles, and 71 sacks. Quietly right under the radar. You wouldn't think I would mention Gina Watkins, would you?
No. He's not. He wasn't on my radar when I was doing my preliminary stuff on this. But then I'll admit I glossed over Cincinnati a lot.
To be fair, many people have. In fact, they actually only have 2. The last time I checked, they only have 2 real Bengals that are in the Hall of Fame: Anthony Munoz and Paul Brown.
I had to think
Only 2.
Yeah, I had to think for a second there who that second one was, because I'm certainly aware of Munoz, but Brown I always forget about.
Yeah, because Paul Brown is mainly associated with the Browns because, well, they share the name. But he also founded the team as well. But, the Bengals, I've spoken to some Bengals fans. They are pissed. They want to see their guys in, especially since it's the team that's been to 2 Super Bowls. And they've won multiple division titles. Yeah, frankly, they've not won a playoff game since 1990 from last time I checked. But they have won numerous division titles. They have been to playoffs several times throughout their history, especially even since the 90s. And they have been, like, when you think of the AFC North, last several years, it's been Steelers, Ravens, Bengals, all fighting for that division crown, and the Browns just fall on their face.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how it's been.
Well,
you can't forget about the Bengals and Anderson, Riley, Parrish, and even for Atkins Green and a few others. Don't forget about them.
You know how I feel about
and
the way I sort of feel about the Bengals is the exact way I sort of feel about when the Blues, and we were talking about that before we went to record. The Bengals have a great fan base. The Blues had a great fan base. If my team, and I'll always say I'm a big Saints fan, if my team can't get in, and I'm usually supporting a hungry fan base. And the Bengals are one of them. They're a good sports city. They support their teams. I would like to see them do well, and it just never seems to happen for them.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, a good way, like, hey, if they can't win a Super Bowl or, like, win a playoff game for that matter, you can at least try to get one of their guys in Canton. I mean, the Jets fans doing that with Flacco and Hill and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And the Bengals, they're focusing on Anderson. Put Ken in. That's been a big hashtag for them. Put Ken in.
As they should. And
I'm all on board.
All right. Can we travel to the North Coast?
Before I say that, I would say that, it also worked because once Anderson in, they can still say that except for Ken Riley.
Yeah, take one step.
Yeah.
And then take the next one.
We can now move from
Cincy to Cleveland.
Cleveland. Ugh. Cleveland. Ugh. Cleveland.
But as you always like to say to me on social media, let's never forget that there was a National Football League before the Super Bowl, and they're actually and I think I know where you're going to go with a lot of this, and I want to see if I'm right here. In some of our previous ones, we talked about the AFL, and I think here there's another league that merged where Cleveland came from, and that was I always get this wrong. It was the AAFL. No,
the AAFC, and they weren't the only team that came in. The San Francisco 49ers were also in the AAFC.
But who won the 4 titles? Cleveland did.
Cleveland Browns.
Right.
But they actually did not win. They did not win 4 titles in a row. They won 5 titles in a row.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go with that, because unlike the AFL NFL merger, where you had to wait for granted you didn't wait that long, but where the Jets sort of said like, hey, there was good football here all along. Cleveland did that right away when they merged with the NFL. Cleveland won the NFL championship in 1950, and there's a couple players. I think I'm already jumping the gun here on you that were part of that. And worth discussing.
This is one guy I really want. There's very few guys that I really want more than this guy. Now, you're going to see Browns fans that they want Clay Matthews Jr., and I'm going to mention him in a bit, but for me, there is no Cleveland Brown. In fact, there's probably no other player that's not in the Hall of Fame that I feel more bad for than Max Speedy.
Yeah, I knew you were going to go there. Yep.
Max Speedy.
Actually, Vinny, before you go there, I do want to sort of give you a personal shout out. I'm in the process of revamping everything where it's going to be adding up to about 300 on our list. And there was a bit of inspiration from yourself. Speedy's going to be getting some love there, as will Duke Slater. A lot of players that maybe have not sort of gotten a lot of love from myself, but will be. Speedy's going to get a very, very strong debut that he didn't have before. So, and a lot of that is based on our conversations. So tell everyone about this fantastic and what I consider one of the first real good wide receivers.
Oh, Matt Speedy was a special player. He was so good that he's only one of 4 players from the Pro Football Research Association that they officially support. Can you imagine that?
Those guys,
guys. Now, obviously, the Pro Football Research Association is the website that gives us the Hall of Very Good. And he's one of the 4 guys, along with Dilwig, Slater, and Weissert, that have been officially supported by the PFRA. And what do they have to say for him? Well, look right here. The very first thing they say is that in the book, The Hidden Game of Football, by historians Bob Carroll, Pete Palmer, and Joe Thorne, lists the best receivers all at that time. And at that publication, it was 1988. So in their top 10, they had guys like Paul Warfield, Lance Allworth, P. Host, Charlie Taylor, Fred Blinkenhoff, Dante Lavelli, Raymond Berry, and Elroy Hirsch. The only 2 guys from that are not in are Charlie Hennigan, who we mentioned back when we were with the Titans, and Max Speedy. Just think about that for a second. And the best receivers of all time, and Max Speedy was one of them, and he's not in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to mean at least something.
Well, and I'm sure there's a bias because of how he started.
Oh.
And
actually,
right
or
wrong.
Why he's in next? That's not why. But before we get to that, why don't we talk about his accomplishments? Because I think his accomplishments are something that every single person and their grandmothers need to look at. When he was in the AAFC, he led it 3 times in receptions, as well as leading the league in receptions for the NFL once. He also finished first in receiving yards twice in 47 and 49. He was also the top receiver in 3 of the 6 championship game appearances. He was the best receiver on the field. He got the most amount of passes. He also caught more passes during his 3-year season than all players except for Tom Fears. And Tom Fears is in the Hall of Fame. Speedy is not. And he was second all time in terms of receptions and receiving yards at the time of his last NFL game. Second all time. Only behind Don Hudson. And ahead of Tom Fears, Elroy Hirsch, Lavelli, and P. Host. And Speedy's just above them. And he had an average of 800 yards per season. Now, mind you, this was a time in which whereas wide receivers did not have much of a presence as they do now, but he still caught 800 yards per season. And he also averaged a 49.9 receptions per season until it was broken 25 years later by Charlie Taylor, who was, of course, in the Hall of Fame. But whose record did he break? It was Max Speedy's. He also caught 4.06 passes per game in the AFC. But if someone thinks, it's just sluggered down because of the tougher competition, no. It was still 4.06 when he got in the NFL. It was still the same. So consistency is the key when it comes to Mr. Max Speedy here. And he, of course, has accolades. Many, many accolades. As you know, he was a part of the Browns from the very beginning, winning the four AFC championship games, as well as the 1950s NFL championship. He was an All-Pro 6 times in his career, as well as a 2-time Pro Bowler when he went to the NFL. He is part of the 1940s All-Decade team. He is someone who has been very, very, very requested by his teammates and other fans, but
hey, Vinny, are you aware? Is there relatives of his that are pushing for him?
Not that I know, but I know that I just heard that relatives have been. But why exactly? Like, there's just so much to say about Max Speedy here that the PFRA has done that I'm mentioning. I really, really want him to get a shout out because they really definitely do deserve it. And if anyone thinks that the AFC was inferior to it, you are an idiot. Historians today consider the AFC an equivalent in terms of the competitive playing field of the NFL. And the AFL was like that too, but so was the AFC.
And it was proven.
Count that out.
I mean, and all you have to do is look at that 1950 season. That's all you have to do.
Mm-hmm. And over in the Total Football, the official encyclopedia of the NFL, he was listed as one of the 300 greatest players ever in the NFL. Ever to ever play football. And he's one of them. He's not in. And football historian Andy Pisak in 2002 called him the best receiver of his era and the best player that is not in the Hall of Fame. But also in the hidden game of football, he was considered the third best player not in the Hall of Fame. But I mentioned all this stuff with Max Speedy. And you just say, wow, look at this guy. Why is he not in yet? Well,
never even a finalist, I don't believe.
Actually has been a couple times.
Oh, has he? Okay.
I feel incredibly bad for him.
Oh, yeah, he was. Am I confusing him with Dilweg?
No. Max Speedy, I'm not. No.
No. In terms of being a finalist, of not having been one.
Speedy has been a finalist a couple times, but I genuinely do feel terrible for the guy because he died in 1993. He'll never get to see it, but many of his former teammates, the reason as to why he didn't, because the reason as to why Speedy didn't get it is because his friends, his teammates, and even he believes the conflict that he had with Paul Brown.
Yeah, I was reading about that.
Is as well as other teammates like Otto Graham, Dante Lavelli, and Mary Motley. That's why. It's because the reason as to why is because if you cross Paul Brown, you would never forget it. And that's why I feel more bad for Max Speedy than any other senior finalist. That's why I feel bad for him. Because he does not deserve that. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
I guess that's a sad thing when every institution like this is decided by people. And we all have grudges, we all have opinions, we all have bias, myself included. And it's really hard to be objective.
Even the people today, I don't have a grudge against Max Speedy. I think by now, people have long since forgiven Max Speedy. And if they haven't, they're already dead by now, so who cares? But, yeah, Max Speedy's a special player. He is easily, by a long shot, the best Brown that's not in the Hall of Fame. And there's a lot of Browns on my list, too.
How many you got?
Keep that in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 more.
10 more. All right. All right, we got a bit of a time constraint, so let's go right to the number 2.
Okay. Dick Schrackrat.
Yep.
I know that the name sounds very, very bad in terms of me trying to say it. It feels very, very butchered, but I'm trying to do my best here.
No, it's perfectly
Yeah.
fine. He's someone I'm a supporter of also. Tell everyone about him.
Yes.
Great tackle from the 60s.
Yes, he was from the 1960s, Shafra. He was a guard and a tackle. He specifically was a 6-time Pro Bowler as well as a 4-time first-team All-Pro. He was part of the very good class of 2007. And in terms of, there's always this one guy on Twitter who always keeps saying that he wants Dick Shafrath in. That one guy. That one guy.
Yeah, one guy is probably not going to help.
No, one guy's not going to happen. But when he was with the Browns, from 59 to 71, never had a losing season. And he was always known as one of the best blockers in the NFL. And all the running backs, especially Jim Brown, 5.74 yards per carry in 1963. He was so good that he was able to block a couple of defenders on the same play. And he was also known for his durability. And he's only missed 2 games in his 13 years of play in the NFL. I think that's a pretty good case for Shafrath, but not before my boy Max Speedy.
No, of course not. You got some others from the 60s, I'm going to guess.
Okay. What do you have?
Oh, Gary Collins.
Yeah, I do have him on the list. Gary Collins is on my list. What it says about Gary Collins, he's a little bit lower, but he is someone I have wanted. He is part of the 1960s All-Decade team. So like Max Speedy, he is an All-Decade team member that is unfortunately not in yet. And when it comes to it, the only downside is that he's the same year that he was also in the All-Decade team along with Boyd Dowler, who was another wide receiver and also another punter as well. Yes, Gary Collins was also the punter for the Browns. It was the 60s. More people were allowed to do that. And granted, it's a little bit slim. He was a 2-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time All-Pro. So when it comes to accolades, not as impressive. However, he still made the All-Decades list in the 1960s. And when he, for instance, like a big mark that he had in 1964 in the NFL Championship game, he caught 3 touchdown passes of 18, 42, and 51 yards, and 5 of the passes were all good for 130 yards. And that led to the Browns winning over the Colts 27-0, and it would be 52 years before Cleveland would be a champion again.
And who else were you looking at?
Well, there's also other guys like Rimkiss and Jane and Ray Smith, but not as big.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to mention this one guy that Browns fans really want. Clay Matthews Jr.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're really big on him.
Like, they really, 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 really want Clay Matthews Jr. However, he's kind of similar to Tom Flores in a sense, in which they want him, but they're not choosing the right guy. The right guy would be Max Speedy. Similar with the Raiders, the right guy would be Lester Hayes. But they are going with a guy that kind of connected with a bit more, I assume. As with Tom Flores, they saw how he won the 2 Super Bowls for him. And just like the Raiders fans with Flores, they're willing to brow people over the head if you think that there's another player more deserving than Clay Matthews Jr. But there is. Now, I want Clay Matthews Jr. He has been a semifinalist a few times, actually. In fact, he made it as a semifinalist this year. And, of course, as you would expect, because it's social media and because it's Twitter as a whole, they went absolutely bonkers and insane, and they completely lashed out at everyone when Matthews did not make it as a finalist. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler and only 1-time second-team All-Pro, so it may not seem that big. Yeah. However, he has been a 3-time semifinalist, and in terms of all tackles, he's 3rd all-time. That's pretty big, I would say.
His
only
resume,
2 players that are ahead of him
Well,
What?
I was going to say his resume reminds me a lot of, in terms of longevity, but never necessarily your top guy at any point in time, and always sort of that second tier. Right? Like a lot of Jim Marshall.
Oh, yeah, Jim Marshall. He's really won by the Vikings, but not as much as Clay Matthews is by the Browns. The only two guys that are above him in terms of tackles is Ray Lewis and Jesse Tuggle, who I will mention Jesse Tuggle when we mention the Falcons. I'm shocked that Falcons fans aren't really pushing for him that much, because if you got even close level of Clay Matthews, that would be something special.
They can't get past Nobis.
Well, yeah, you need to focus on Nobis first. Focus on Nobis, and then, but I'll mention that when we get to the NFC South. But as for Clay Matthews, like I said, he's not the Browns player that I would push for. I would clearly push for Max Speedy first, because his resume screams as one of the greatest players of all time by none. Matthews is a guy that's more of a borderline case, in which, yeah, there's going to be people that are really going to really want him, but his resume doesn't come off the board as much as Speedy. But I really do appreciate what his daughter has really put together, and it's really been effective. Yes, I did say his daughter. His daughter has put together this whole campaign for Clay Matthews Jr. And, of course, we're mentioning Clay Matthews. You might as well mention his other offspring, Clay Matthews III, who we will talk about when we get to the Rams. But I would say at the moment, he might have a better shot, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But as for Clay Matthews Jr., I think the campaign the Browns fans have put together is really, really strong, really, really loud, and I'm pretty sure everyone knows they want him at this point. But in terms of the best Brown, it's not him. There's a couple other guys, but I appreciate what they've been putting together, and I do think that could mean more things for the future. And in terms of former Browns players, there's, of course, one former player that is now former, but I need to mention his name. The GOAT, Joe Thomas.
Yep. Yeah, and I was going to say if he's going to get in, I think, and I got to look this up, but Thomas will probably will get into the Hall of Fame with by far the lowest winning percentage of any player.
I think he will. Do you know what that says? That tells you how good he was as a player, because usually players that are good generally make, you would think that, if you're so good, how come you never made the postseason? I mean, look at Eric, but then again, let's say, Eric Flowers played in the playoff game, and he's atrocious. And now he's on his third team, the Redskins. Joe Thomas only experienced a winning season once, and that was his rookie year. Since then, his teams have been awful. And regardless of, with the Browns, who their head coach was, whether it was Mike Pettin or Hugh Jackson or Rob Chizink or Romeo Crennel, doesn't matter. It didn't matter who he was blocking, whether that was Thad Lewis or Brandon Whedon or Johnny Manziel or Brian Hoyer or Deshaun Kaiser or Josh McCown or all the billions of quarterbacks that have already played with the Browns. I think it was 28 or 30 starting quarterbacks since 1999. Yeah. So it didn't matter who the quarterback was or who the head coach was or who the general manager was. He was always there. In every single play since his rookie year, he has played 10,363. That is the number of consecutive snaps Joe Thomas has played. Yeah. And the only reason as to why it snapped was because he tore his triceps and he never played again.
You think he might be in first ballot?
Yes. Yes. He will make it first ballot.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he was a 10-time Pro Bowl and a 9-time All-Pro, and 7 of those being first team. He is the best left tackle that I've ever seen in person play.
Are there any other Browns you want to sort of touch briefly on? We've hit the big ones.
2, but neither of them are players. Gary Collins, who was the assistant coach from 46 to 53, as well as their head coach from 63 to 70. So with Paul Brown, you wonder, did anyone help him out? Yes. His second in command was Gary Collins. In fact, when he was brought back. He was immediately named their head coach after Paul Brown was fired. And he led the team to, of course, the 1964 NFL championship. And Gary Collins was a pretty essential part of those Browns teams from 46 to 53 when he was a part of them, winning 6 championships, 4 of them AAFC, as well as 2 of them NFL. He is in a similar boat with that guy from the Dolphins that I mentioned. Name escaped me. Like in terms of like Scarnecchia and in terms of Asparger, those assistant coaches or head coaches that deserve a lot of love. Collins is definitely a guy that comes to mind easily. In fact, Gary Collins has one of the best winning percentages all time as a head coach. No, not Gary Collins. Why did I say Gary Collins? The name escaped. Sorry, my bad. Why did I say his name, Gary Collins? That was very, very bad on my part. Yeah, my apologies for that.
No, it's okay. It's the only time Gary Collins will be heard on the show.
You know, I mentioned Gary Collins already.
No, Kerry Collins.
No, what? No, why did I say Gary Collins?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was bad on my part. My mistake. My bad. Blaine Collier, that's why. Blaine Collier. That's who I'm referring to. Blaine Collier, not Gary Collins. Blaine Collier. Oh. Sorry, that was a very, very bad move on my part.
Well, I drink excessively. Hey, I don't know what your excuse is.
Blaine Collier, not Gary Collins. Not Gary Collins.
Oh, good.
Man, I'm still laughing at that. Yeah, but like I said, Blaine Collier, he was considered a sportsmanship. He was considered a student of the game. In fact, the Kentucky chapter of the NFL Players Association established the Bleier Award in his honor. I mean, that's pretty something special in an entire state. Not bad. In fact, his winning percentage as a head coach, 69.1. Like 69.1, his winning percentage as a head coach. That's insanely high. I think that, if I recall, that's even more than Bill Belichick.
I believe another former Browns coach.
Collier.
All right, so Vinny, we got the one big one left to finish off with, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think you'd agree with me. If people think that we're done with the Steel Curtain in the Hall of Fame, we're not.
No, there's 3 former Steel Curtain players that deserve it.
One really big one, and I don't want to take away some of your steam here, but I imagine I wonder if you agree with me, the biggest omission so far, I'd say, is Elsie Greenwood.
Is there any doubt? Of course. Elsie Greenwood is by far the best Steeler not in the Hall of Fame. In fact, he's been a finalist for the Hall of Fame 6 times, and he's still not in. And unfortunately, he will never get to see it, as he unfortunately passed away in 2013. Still there?
Yeah, no, I'm still here. Yeah, just one of those things. It's almost like I was having a dramatic pause there for effect, because it's one of those things where it's like, why? What was it like? Was there just like, did they reach a point where you think there was an anti-Pittsburgh bias? Like, okay, well, we've hit enough here at this point. That's the only thing I can think of.
I think so. Yeah, I think the thing that held Greenwood back is probably for the same reason as to why it took a while for Kramer and Robinson. The assessment that, we have enough Steelers in there. I don't think anyone's going to complain if we just leave out Greenwood or, a couple others. No, they remember. They're still not happy. They're not happy. They want Greenwood in. They want Greenwood in very, very badly.
Yeah, as do I.
Agree with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I mean, you were part of the All-Decade team. You were an integral part as the defensive end for the Steel Curtain, as well as being an All-Pro twice and a Pro Bowler twice. And the fact that you were a finalist 6 times, I mean, come on, you would think he'd be in by now. But no, he's not.
Well, there's a reason why they won 4 Super Bowls, and he was a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, he was the defensive end on the Steel Curtain.
And you've got two others that you're thinking.
Yes, there I am thinking of two other ones. However, unlike Elsie Greenwood, they're not as high. However, I would still look very, very deep into them. And this one is a guy that I wouldn't think would be as high, but he has definitely shot up my board the last several months. Donny Shale.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Donny Shale is a guy that I know former teammate and Hall of Fame head coach Tony Dungy really, really, really wants in. He has been a finalist once in 2002. So he has been a finalist before, but unfortunately no success for Donny. And he's been a Pro Bowler 5 times. He's been a All-Pro 4 times, as well as the Super Bowl champion 4 times. And it's the same thing with Elsie Greenwood, in which it's most likely because of the team that he played for, as opposed to why he's not in. I think another reason why he's not in is because he's not part of the All-Decade team. But he was the very first special teams captain for the Steelers in their history, and they've been around since the 30s. So you would think that would be a little bit important. He was so good that he was nicknamed the Human Torpedo, and as we all know how fast torpedoes go, they go out like bullets. And Donny Shale was known as being a very vicious tackler, as well as very good in run support. But what makes him stand out is the fact that he was able to get 51 career interceptions. And when he retired in 1987, he led the league in interception from a strong safety position, and only one player had more interceptions in the same period. And that's the fact that only one other guy did that as well, besides him. I mean, again, you would think that's pretty special. And he's part of the Steelers' 50th and 75th anniversary teams. And he was part of the Silver Anniversary Super Bowl team in 1990. Not bad, I'd say.
Yeah, no, a fantastic player, certainly worthy of a look. And he has actually gained a lot more support on our site, too. And who's your third guy?
Yeah, Andy Russell, of course.
Mm-hmm, yep.
And Russell is not as big on my list as Greenwood or Shell, but he has definitely been a guy that I have been a bit interested in. But a little bit more in the past, but because Shell has really picked up the steam and has kind of been in place of Russell. But he is a genuinely really very good, actually great player, being a 7-time Pro Bowler and a first-team All-Pro and a 3-time second-team All-Pro. The only downside with him is the fact that he was also a linebacker, and the fact that 2 other linebackers, both Lambert and Ham, are both in. Andy Russell is that third wheel that not many really talk about as much, and therefore he's not in. And he has been part of the very good class of 2011. And, the fact he was good enough to play alongside Ham and Lambert, they might be saying, oh, he must have been far, far worse. No, he might not have been on the 75th anniversary team like Ham and Lambert, but he wasn't that far behind. He was known for his durability. He never missed a game in his career. Never. He was always there. Didn't matter what happened. He always showed up. And he was a captain of that team from 67 to 76. And, just like Elsie Greenwood and Donny Shale, not because of it's because of where he played, and it's not because the team was bad, it's just because the team was good. And,
and there is a bias there. I mean, like, as much as a lot of these teams think there's always these pushes to get more of a certain one, it works against you. And we see it all the time in all Halls of Fame.
Yeah, but I do think, the guard is changing a little bit more on that. I mean, more people are more accepting. You're going to see some players like, hell, when Broncos fans saw Johnny Robinson got in, they said, why did they still make Chieftain? Why not for our team? Well, they probably just don't care. They just want to see more Broncos, and they're just mad because it's a division rival. Let's be real here. But There probably is that theme there, but I still want to see more Chiefs, and I don't care what they have to say for themselves. But, yeah, Greenwood, Shell, and Russell, in that order.
Yep, that'd be my order.
Yeah, I think that's everyone's order, especially Greenwood. Greenwood has to be the first one.
That for me personally is one of my biggest omissions is Elsie Greenwood, and it has been for a long, long time.
Elsie Greenwood, when I thought of like the best Steeler not in it, it was him. There was no other person I had. None of them even came close. Not as much as Speedy compared to the rest of the Cleveland Browns or Ken Anderson compared to the rest of the Cincinnati Bengals. But Greenwood was definitely by far the most glaring omission that's from the Steelers that's not in the Hall of Fame. But that's really it when it comes to Steelers in the senior pool. Because it's actually not that much.
I was going to say, fan votes have got him up to number 2 on our list.
Yeah, not as much as Howley, but I will mention Howley in a bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
when we get to the Cowboys, I'm going to mention Chuck
Howley.
For
sure. Well, for sure. And, just touching on the list that we have, just to verify, it's not necessarily what I personally think. Once we put them up, then high votes will alter ranking.
I would definitely say that the fact that he played for the Steelers maybe definitely helps because it's a very, very popular team, just like the Cowboys.
Doesn't hurt.
While we're mentioning that list, we mentioned number 1, number 2. We mentioned number 1, Brisbane. We're going to mention him more later, but we can't forget about number 3 there on that list. And he's not even in the senior pool. In fact, he's been a finalist the last several years.
Oh, Faneca? Yeah. Oh, and that's another one that blows my mind. But because he's still in the modern era category, I guess I don't feel as angry about it. I think he should have been in 2-3 years ago.
Oh, absolutely. But luckily he has been building steam. He's going into his 5th year of eligibility. His first 2 years, he made it at 15. The last 2 years, 18 and 19, he made it as top 10. So the looks of it, it looks like he will make it into the Hall of Fame sooner, but I don't think it's going to be before Baselli. But there's actually another thing holding him back. Steve Hutchinson, which we will mention when we get to the Seahawks.
Right.
But that's why. It's because there's some people that are hell-bent on Faneca, and there's also just as many that are hell-bent on Hutchinson. Personally, I would put Faneca before Hutchinson.
Oh, for sure.
But there's also many of those people that are just hell-bent, my guy must be in first.
There's no big push from the city of Jacksonville for Tony Baselli. That would imply that people in Jacksonville actually are aware of anything other than Florida Gators football.
Oh, no, I'm referring to Hutchinson.
I know. It was more of a shot at the city of Jacksonville.
Yeah,
Baselli
is a guy that I really, really want. But unlike Faneca, who has Hutchinson, Baselli it's really more of just a clear path. That's why.
We touched a bit on Hines Ward earlier, multi-time semifinalist. You think maybe he can make the jump to a finalist in the next couple of years?
He's not going to make it next year. I think in terms of wide receiver that's been a semifinalist, I think Holt's going to get there first. I think for Hines Ward, until Bruce and or Holt make it into Canton, I think Hines Ward is still going to be in the senior, be a semifinalist for a little while.
Yeah, he might be one of those ones that he could go the full distance on the ballot, but if he doesn't get in, he's not going to get in as a senior. He's just not.
I don't know. I think he may.
That'll be sort of an interesting one to watch. I've got a couple others I want your take on. One I really want to get your take on. James Harrison.
Yeah.
Again, we talk about personal bias. The guy's nicknamed Debo that's from one of my favorite movies. If that's your nickname, I already love you.
I love James Harrison. Now, granted, some are going to say, the personality, who cares? James Harrison was the face of that Steelers defense, not named. We will talk about him just afterwards. But He's been with the Steelers 3 different times. And yes, we know how it ended. Him wanting to leave, and he joined the Patriots. And he was effective for the Patriots when they went to Super Bowl 52, where they fell to the Philadelphia Eagles 41-33. But Harrison was a staple for that team for many years. And as much as people may not say, like, oh, he was like city of Pittsburgh case, they're going to love him afterwards. That's how it always happens for these players that ended on bad notes. They're going to like him afterwards. And it's not like he was a scrub. He was, in fact, the last time I checked, he actually had more sacks. He has more sacks than anyone else to ever play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are a team that's been around since the 1930s. You just got to think about that for a second. Yes, it's 80.5. So it's not as big as, like, it's not over 100, but he was an outside linebacker. He wasn't much of a pass rusher, but he was a defensive player of the year in 2008, which was also the year that the Steelers won Super Bowl 43 over the Arizona Cardinals, and he had that 100-yard interception return for a touchdown. I mean, come on, where's that? That has to rank very, very big in terms of like well-known Super Bowl plays. I mean, you would think so.
Mm-hmm. Now I got a few more Steelers. Who do you got after Harrison?
Well, Palomalo is going to make it first ballot. Everyone knows that, so I don't really have to mention much on him.
Right.
Joey Porter is a guy that some people mention.
Yeah, a hard road, but he was a hard road for him to get there. But yeah, very good player.
Yeah, like, unlike Harrison, I don't see as big of a push for Joey Porter. Now, I want to see Harrison. Porter's that in-between guy. Yes, he did make it in the all-decade team, so that definitely does help him out. However, you got to look at the other people in the linebacker section for the second team, for the linebacker. The other two guys are DeMarcus Ware and Zach Thomas. Well, one retired a couple years ago, will make it first out. And Zach Thomas isn't in yet, and he's a semifinalist. So I would wait for Zach Thomas to be a finalist and then get in, and then I would focus more on Joey Porter's chances. Mm-hmm. But I would not mind him. I'm down with it.
I've got one major name that I think you'd agree with, but I'm wondering if there's other players, because I think you already know where I'm going with this once I just said other players.
Yeah, like, you can say it.
Okay, well, because there's other players to maybe sort of like touch on, but the biggest name I think is Bill Cowher.
Yeah, in terms of a head coach.
Yeah.
I think so. Like, and you look at like fan votes, Bill Cowher actually has more votes in terms of like when like some people, like some fans put on, like they have a whole list of like preliminaries. It doesn't mean anything. It's just something that fans can do. But Bill Cowher actually has gotten more votes from fans than Jimmy Johnson, Don Coryell, and Tom Flores, who are seen as usually the big three in terms of head coaches that have a good shot at making it in the next few years. And Bill Cowher is above that. And just three coaches in the last 50 years with him, Chuck Noll, like 50 years, or 40, 50 years, of Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin. Pretty impressive, I would say. I would go with Cowher, but I think I would focus on those three guys before we get to him. But I do want to mention a couple more players before we get to a few others.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is it okay?
Of course.
I'm gonna say his name because they need to move on badly, and it's.
I already love where this is going.
And hell, even some, like, there's this one media person that says, oh, he's not as good as the other ones, even though he broke the record or whatever. Gary Anderson.
Okay.
Gary Anderson. I want him in. I want Gary Anderson in the Pro Football Hall of Fame right now. Okay, I know it's going to take a little while for him, but you're probably wondering why I'm even saying
like forever, but yeah, go on.
Who did Morton Anderson break to become to have the most points in Gary Anderson?
I wasn't a huge proponent of Morton Anderson for that matter. But.
Yeah, I wanted Morton Anderson in too. And, Gary Anderson, when he retired, he had the most amount of points in NFL history, and he ranked second in times in terms of games played. And currently he's third in points scored and third in field goals made. And he was also part of the 1980s and the 1990s All-Decade team, but he was part of the second team because Morton Anderson was on the first team. But Gary Anderson was just on the second team. And he was 99.2 in terms of extra points. So it's not like he was a scrub there either. However, what people are going to focus on is the fact that he missed the field goal and the extra point in the 1998 NFC Championship game. Even though that may be a major factor, they still could have won that game over the Atlanta Falcons, and they didn't. So don't keep blaming on Anderson, Vikings fans. Don't, because Anderson's probably still pissed off at you guys for still using you as a scapegoat, excusing him as a scapegoat relentlessly. And that's
yeah, but if you're a kicker, that's the things you've got to do. Vinatieri is going to get in for his kick in the snow.
Yeah, I know, but I want to see Anderson make it, and I do think I could see a bit of a push in the future. I wanted to, and I have no problem leading that charge. It really comes down to the fact that Anderson was that guy that he was right by Morton Anderson. Morton Anderson may have had a bit more All-Pros, but Gary Anderson was not far behind. He just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't that far behind. What do you think of his chances?
Gary Anderson, 0.
You don't think he has any chance at all?
No, he has no chance at all.
Is it because he's the kicker?
Absolutely. I mean, and I know I've got sort of like an inherent bias against them, but taking that away, it's hard for kickers to get in, period. So if it's that hard for a kicker to get in and his most known thing is a miss, it negates, and right or wrong, and it's wrong, a lot of all the great things he does. That is the reality of a place kicker in terms of Canton. So
yeah.
And
I do feel like him.
Yeah, and I totally get your point. I do, but Gary Anderson will never get into the Hall of Fame, ever.
I don't know. I mean, there's many of these guys that say, they'll never make it, and they end up making it. So I don't know. Like I said, Gary Anderson, he's behind Max Feeney and those guys I feel extremely bad for, and I really, really want, because I don't care if there's some guys that say, he's not as good. I have no problem yelling in their face until it's like a screaming match. That's how much I want Gary Anderson in.
Mm-hmm. I gotta say that's not the person I thought you'd come off the most passionate about. I expected it on Speedy. I did. You surprised me here.
No. Speedy, I would be yell at it, but Gary Anderson, because I feel like it feels like his character has been smeared, and with Speedy, it's a guy that you feel bad for, but at least his character was not smeared. No,
and I get that. I totally, and I see your point on that. I really, really do. But if you ask me what I think his chances are, and sadly, it's 0. That's honestly what I think.
Yeah, I would say that in terms of kickers, like down the road, I would say that he's definitely like, if it's down the road, I would see him as the most likely one. Well, right now, I would say no. Down the future, I would say maybe. In terms of my wants, up at the sky. But I don't know. Like I think it's gonna be like a little bit, but yeah, I feel like I'm gonna have to ask some Steelers fans for it, because I'm dead serious. I have no problem leading this charge for him. I have no problem doing it. I would have great joy in doing it too.
Why not?
Because it would be.
All right, I'll throw another name out at you. Greg Lloyd.
Greg Lloyd is a guy that I think some Steelers fans mention. However, he's a bit lower on my list because he doesn't have as many of the All-Pros as Joey Porter or Alan Faneca.
Do you have a Steeler ahead of him that we haven't touched about?
Yeah, Carnell Lake,
yeah. What about Dwight White?
Dwight White? That's a tough one. He's even lower, like way lower.
No, fair enough. I think there's only like one other. Actually, maybe we'll leave it at this one here. What do you think of the current chances of their quarterback Ben Roethlisberger.
First ballot.
Really?
First ballot. If not first ballot, I can see if not first ballot, I could see top 3. And no, he did not rape anyone.
No, I wasn't going there, but.
No, I need to mention that because whenever I mention because 50% of the tweets that slander him, it's just oh, he's a rapist, and it's the same thing with Ray Lewis. There's no evidence that Ray Lewis truly did kill someone. Just like there's not as much evidence. There's a little bit less. Yes, he might have been with the wrong people, but there's not really much evidence to suggest.
Okay, well, let's move away from Roethlisberger in a bathroom stall, which I think is where that accusation came from, and on the field. He's not as high on the passing yards, but then that's a different type of team, and that's perfectly fine. Does the smack talk from Le'Veon Bell work against him, perhaps?
Well, who cares?
Okay.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
It doesn't. Whoever says it does is an absolute moron. They need to get their head checked.
So you think he's first ballot? I think he's going to get in. I don't think. Granted, his career is not over yet, so there's still some story to be told. This is going to be a very, very interesting season for the Steelers.
Oh yeah, it's gonna. I some people. It's I say first ballot, but do I really think he's going to be first ballot? I think it's a 50-50 chance. I think it's definitely going to be in the first 2-3 years. Definitely. I think there's no chance in my mind that's going to happen, but I don't see first ballot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends. A lot of it depends also, too, when he retires and who he's retiring at the same time of. Let's say he retires early and he retires at the same time as Rodgers, Breeze, or Brady. Because Roethlisberger's 35. He could go on much longer, of course, but it's hard to sort of peg a year when we don't know who he's up against.
I mean, every single year, it's will he retire? Will he not retire? Will he stay? Will he not stay? I mean, I think he might. I say, well, I really don't know if he's going to be first ballot or not. I say it back and forth, but I generally don't know. But he'll definitely make it first 3 years.
Okay. We're gonna come back to this conversation in a few years, guaranteed. All right.
There's one more active Steeler. And no, not Antonio Brown, because in that little mix, yeah, Antonio Brown is definitely a future Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of active Steelers now, there's one other guy, and it's the guy that hands him off the ball. Markieff Bouncy.
Okay.
You can't forget about him. 7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro. Not bad, I would say.
Yeah, not bad at all.
And he's still in his late 20s. He can realistically play even longer, and I personally see Bouncy either being first or second team in terms of a center, and I would not be shocked if he's first team, and I think that's only going to help his chances out.
Yeah, there's going to be the Steelers are sort of my everyone's watching the Browns in this division this year. I just want to see what happens with the Steelers. I'm more fascinated about them than almost any other team.
Yeah, and the Ravens too. You can't forget about them, and no one cares about the Bengals. Actually, I am interested in the Bengals to see how Zach Taylor does the head coach and to see how many losses they accumulate throughout the season.
5-11.
4-12.
4-12. Well, I bet you my usual beer, but you don't drink, so.
Yeah, and well, that's really it with the players of Pittsburgh. But there are several non-players. Actually, you can kind of say a player here because this guy, when you think of Steelers, when you think of guys that represent the city of Pittsburgh as well as the team itself, why not have a guy that's been with the team for basically its existence? Dick Hoke. I know that's a very, very weird choice, you might say. Now, who is Dick Hoke? Well, Dick Hoke played for the Steelers as a running back for 10 years before he transitioned to become the running backs coach of the team from 72 to 2006. Yes, I said 1972 to 2006. He was the running backs coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's an interesting one.
Now,
you have another?
Well, the reason why I mentioned him is because when the Steelers finally had their Hall of Honor,
yeah,
there was only 4 guys, like 23 of the 27 on that list that are not in the Hall of Fame. First 3 were Greenwood, the Greenwood, Shale, and Russell. But the only guy that's not one of those is Dick Hoke. The reason as to why he stayed as the running back coach is because he was perfectly content with where he was. Like, many teams have asked him if he could be their head coach or an assistant, but he said, no, I'm okay where I am. And when he was there as the running backs coach, you had Franco Harris, you had Jerome Bettis. You can kind of say Rocky Bleier as well.
Yeah, that was a name I was wondering if you were going to bring up, actually.
No, Rocky Bleier's not making the Hall of Fame, in case you're curious. He never even made the Pro Bowl. But maybe after Greenwood, Russell, and Shell, maybe you can see him. But the Steelers, during his time, 30,000 yards. That's the only team, during that period from 72 to 06, that's the only team that even came close to 30,000 yards.
All right. Is there anyone you want to leave off with?
Actually, 3 guys, all executives.
All right. Who are they?
Maybe Dick Haley, Todd Haley's father. Well, he was a bit more than that. You look at those 70s Steelers teams. Do you ever cross your mind as to who drafted them, by any chance?
No, because unless I'm watching the movie Draft Day, I never think about it.
Well, I can tell you right now. Well, for some of the guys in the 60s, but for like those 70s era, during that era, like the early 70s, I've always wondered, like, how good is this guy? Like, to hit on all those players, like especially from that 1974 class with Lynn Swann, Jack Lambert, John Stallworth, and Mike Webster. And there's also another guy from the same draft that's not in, Donny Shale, so that would make it 5 Hall of Fame. That would make it 4 Hall of Famers, 5 that's very, very close. The borderline should be in. And he was the one who selected all those guys. The greatest draft class by a team in NFL history, and he was the guy that led the charge. He was their GM from 71 to 1990 before he became the head of player personnel for the New York Jets from 1991 to 2007, where the Jets managed to get out of the rumble that they were in the mid-90s and go to the AFC Championship game in 1998 with Bill Parcells as the head coach. So, like, in terms of, like, general managers for the Steelers, Dick Haley is right behind. Like, you have Gil Brandt. Well, after George Young, Dick Haley is, like, right behind him in line, I would say. But there's another executive from the Steelers, too, that we shouldn't leave off, and that's Bill Nunn.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, but I sent you a video of NFL.
Yeah, just recently, I believe you did that.
Yeah, that video itself basically laid out a foundation for a Hall of Fame case for Bill Nunn. Bill Nunn was a guy that was willing to go to these small-time black colleges, from it said, I remember. And he was willing to look at them and draft them. And, like, he gets a lot of credit for that. And his knowledge for the historical black college universities, and in fact, he was a member of the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Yes, there is such thing as a Black College
there
Football
definitely
Hall
is.
of Fame.
Definitely worth checking out, too. Excellent website they have.
Mm-hmm. And the Steelers noted that his coverage of these players were, like, those colleges, consider they were underrepresented, like the college that he did, but he was like a guru at that. Like, he was a guru in terms at a position, at a level that no one else was when it came to these historically black colleges. And, besides that, he was also a journalist. That's how he was able to that's a lot of his journalism skill back when he was a journalist before he became the personnel director. But afterwards, he became just one of their scouts. But he was semi-retired, but he was still a big part of their scouting department until his death in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So he's another one of those guys, when you think of Pittsburgh, when you think of the Steelers, he's one of those guys you usually think of. And like him and Dick Haley, like a lot of people like to credit Haley, but they also credit Nunn equally as much. So there's a part of me that feels like, you kind of have to have them together. They're so intertwined and joined at the hip.
And was there a third, or was there anything else on Pittsburgh?
Actively, the best general manager currently in the NFL is probably Bill Belichick, but then he's also the head coach. But the question is, the Steelers have been the most successful team in the NFL since the second most successful team in the NFL since the turn of the century.
Mm-hmm.
But why are they that way? Well, I think a big reason for that is because, the Steelers are known for their continued level of success, and similar like the Spurs or the Celtics, I would say, or Celtics or Spurs, and the Yankees, in terms of continuous success over a long period of time, and still consistent, still successful model of consistency. Reason as to why that's been that way in the 2000s because of Kevin Colbert.
Excellent one.
Kevin Colbert, I think outside of Belichick, is the second best GM in terms of accolades in the NFL. Like, he was the guy responsible for bringing, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Troy Polamalu, James Harrison. A lot of these, and Markieff Bouncy, David DeCastro, and you just mentioned all these fantastic Steelers since the 2000s. The guy who gets credit for it is him, Dick Haley.
Mm-hmm.
No, not Dick Haley. Kevin Colbert, my bad.
That's all right.
Sorry.
Please don't
Kevin
worry about
Colbert is responsible for. He's one of the reasons for why the Steelers are still consistent nowadays. And I think that's I would say that's a nice trifecta of executives from the Steelers that should get plenty of consideration. Well, not Colbert just yet because he's acting, but for Nunn and Haley, oh yeah, definitely.
No, and that's definitely it's an underappreciated in terms of Canton anyway. Genre.
Things are changing for the future since the contributor section, which I love, and it looks like they're going to have more.
Yes.
And now we're speaking of more, let's talk about that right now.
Yeah, for sure. Tell everyone about the news that really didn't get a lot of press, but you and I are certainly aware of it.
I'm shocked it didn't get any press because, really? Wow. It's going to happen. I'm so happy that it is. There's going to be an amnesty class in 2020, which I am absolute through the roof, over the moon about. I am so excited for this. I don't know how large the class is. I think it might be 10 more, maybe 20 more. I don't know. It's exciting. We're going to see at least 10, 15 at least more seniors this year because it's a very, very special time. It's the NFL's 100th anniversary. That means a lot of these guys that I mentioned so far might have a better chance of getting, for instance, Max Feeney, who I mentioned, and Gino Cappelletti, and Randy Gradishar, and Elsie Greenwood. And, a lot of these guys might have a better chance because of it. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And
hopefully,
it would not shock me.
Hopefully it goes through. And kudos on the...
It did go through. It did go through.
Oh, it did go through. Okay. Okay, so then I guess I read it wrong because the way I was reading it, it was like it was still in discussion period. But okay, this is good.
No, it's definitely going to happen.
Great.
It's definitely going to happen.
And, kudos on the Pro Football Hall of Fame for sort of, recognizing that. Because, that's not...
I'm happy.
Yeah, and I think also people need to understand, too, the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the NFL, they're not connected. I mean, they are,
people keep saying that it's good, though. Like the Browns, like the Raiders fans were saying, I mentioned the Raiders fans because, they keep saying, oh my God, Goodell wants Tom Flores to die before he makes it.
Well,
saying, you do realize that Goodell has no say on the Hall of Fame, right?
It's also sort of the same thing when, and I might be getting the story a little bit wrong, but when Eric Dickerson was sort of saying, well, we should all sort of like boycott the Hall of Fame until the NFL recognizes better care for the past players. Well, okay, they're not connected, Eric.
And you should know this because you're one of them, Eric. You should know a bit more of this because, you are a gold jacket.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're not punishing the NFL by doing that. And, that's one of those things where, people need to understand that. I mean, it's also like with baseball, and, Pete Rose was always in the news for all of that. Baseball banned Pete Rose, and the Baseball Hall of Fame chose to keep him off the ballot. They don't have to.
Well, they're the Baseball Hall of Fame's corrupt. That's all I'm going to say.
True, but the Baseball Hall of Fame did not have to do that. And that's just something that I think a lot of people are not aware of. But, that's neither here nor there. All right, so we're going NFC next. Like always, I'm going to let you pick which division we're doing.
If we started the AFC with the AFC West, why not start the NFC with the NFC West?
That's what I figured you were going to do.
It makes sense.
Not a problem from me. All right, so we'll do this in a couple weeks and have fun in New York, and we'll continue to enjoy the lovely tropics. Life's been good to me so far.
Yeah, and good luck. Good luck tonight. In fact, right now, the NBA Finals is about to happen, and let's just see what happens with the Raptors.
Go Raptors. All right, talk to you later.
See ya, Kirk. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.